The twin suns of Valara Prime rose slowly over the horizon, painting the glass towers of the capital city with soft gold light. The air shimmered with energy from thousands of hovering ships circling above the great palace dome. For the first time in a century, the galaxy's two strongest powers, the Zarathian Empire and the United Human Colonies, were about to meet face-to-face for peace. Inside the palace, Princess Sari-Velthar walked with steady, graceful steps. Every motion, every breath she took was measured. She had been trained since childhood never to show weakness. Her long silver robes flowed behind her as she moved, and the jeweled crest of the royal family glimmered faintly on her chest. Her face was calm, her violet eyes distant and unreadable, yet beneath that calm surface her heart was heavy. The war with humanity had cost millions of lives. Entire cities had been lost to orbital bombardments. Even though she had not fought herself, she carried the pain of her people like a second skin. Peace sounded noble, but she knew how deep the wounds ran on both sides. She entered the Grand Hall of Accord, a wide chamber filled with banners and shimmering crystal pillars. The Zarathian advisors stood on one side, dressed in ceremonial armor. Across from them, the human delegation waited quietly. It was the first time Sarai had ever seen humans in person. They were different, shorter than her kind, less radiant, their skin and hair duller than the luminous Zarathians. But there was something else, something alive in their eyes. Confidence, maybe, or defiance. She couldn't tell which. Then she noticed one man standing slightly apart from the others, his uniform marked with silver lines of distinction. He was not an ambassador. He was a soldier, Captain Aaron Miles. The name was announced by the chamber herald. He stood straight, not lowering his head as most visitors did in the presence of royalty. His face was marked by a faint scar across his temple, a sign of battle. His eyes, gray, calm, steady, met hers for a heartbeat too long. Sarai felt a strange shiver pass through her chest. She immediately looked away. Such reactions were unacceptable for a royal representative. She reminded herself that humans were impulsive creatures. They had courage, yes, but also recklessness. She must remain composed no matter what. As the talks began, words filled the air like the slow rhythm of drums. The Zarathian Prime Minister spoke of reparations and boundaries. The human envoy responded with promises of shared research and peaceful trade. Sarai only listened, her gaze occasionally drifting back to the human soldier. He said nothing, but his presence felt solid, grounding. Unlike most humans she had read about, he didn't fidget or glare. He simply observed, as though he wanted to understand. Halfway through the session, the lights dimmed for a visual presentation, a holographic display of potential peace routes across the galaxy. As it shimmered to life, a faint hum filled the air. Then suddenly, a loud crack, the hologram flickered. The hum turned into a shriek. An explosion tore through the upper balcony, scattering debris and shards of crystal across the hall. Guards shouted. Ministers ducked for cover. The air filled with smoke and the echo of blaster fire. The peace conference had been ambushed. Sarai's bodyguards surrounded her instantly, but another blast threw them off their feet. The princess fell, her ears ringing, her vision blurred by smoke. Somewhere in the chaos she heard alien shouts, unfamiliar voices shouting in a language she didn't recognize. And then, a hand grabbed her arm. She spun around, ready to strike, but stopped. It was him, the human soldier. Aaron's uniform was torn and a trail of blood ran down his arm, but his eyes were sharp and focused. Your Highness, he said firmly, we have to move. Now. Before she could argue, he pulled her behind a shattered pillar as another explosion roared nearby. Pieces of ceiling crashed where she had been standing seconds before. She blinked, her mind struggling to process. A human was protecting her. Her guards were gone, either scattered or wounded. The smoke was too thick to see through. The palace's automated defenses were down. Aaron drew his sidearm and scanned the room with a soldier's precision. They're targeting you, he said quickly. We need to get you out before they lock down the exits. I cannot run, she protested, voice shaking slightly. My people are here, and they'll need you alive, he cut in, his tone respectful but firm. Please, princess. Trust me. Sarai hesitated, torn between pride and fear. No Zarathian ruler had ever placed their safety in a human's hands. Yet looking into his eyes, steady, unflinching, she sensed no deceit. Only duty. Very well, she whispered. They moved through the ruined hall, staying low. The floor was covered with fragments of glowing crystal. Smoke curled through the air like dark mist. Every few moments, Aaron stopped to check corners, guiding her carefully. His calmness was almost unnatural. When they reached a service tunnel beneath the chamber, Sarai finally caught her breath. Her heart pounded, her hands trembling slightly despite her efforts to stay composed. "You are injured," she said quietly. "It's nothing," Aaron replied. The burn on his arm was deep, but he didn't slow down. She frowned. "Humans are strange," she murmured. "You risk your life for someone who is not even your kind." He gave a small, tired smile. "Someone has to make sure this piece doesn't die on the first day." For a moment, she didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that, simply, honestly, without fear. They reached a lower corridor where the noise of battle faded. Emergency lights flickered on the walls. Aaron checked a control panel, trying to override a locked door. "This leads to the escape route," he said. "Once we're through, I'll contact your guards." "Once we're through?" she asked. "You intend to come with me?" He glanced at her. "Until you're safe." Something in his tone made her chest tighten. Before she could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them, metal boots striking the floor. The attackers had found their trail. "Get behind me," Aaron ordered. Sarai wanted to protest again. She was a warrior by birth, trained in the art of plasma combat. But before she could, Aaron raised his weapon and fired precisely, disabling the two intruders with quick, controlled shots. She watched in silent astonishment. His movements were efficient, his aim perfect. Not the wild fury she had imagined from human soldiers, but disciplined, precise bravery. When the corridor fell silent again, he turned toward her. "Are you all right?" She nodded slowly. "You fight well. For a human." He almost laughed, shaking his head. "I'll take that as a compliment, Your Highness." They continued through the tunnel until they reached a wide chamber lined with ancient Zarathian carvings. Aaron stopped to catch his breath, his hand pressed against his wounded arm. Sarai noticed the blood spreading through his sleeve. "You are hurt worse than you admit," she said, stepping closer. He shrugged. "It's part of the job." She wanted to argue, to remind him that recklessness was foolish, but something stopped her. Instead, she found herself studying his expression. The quiet determination, the lack of fear, the strange gentleness in his eyes. In that moment, something unexpected happened. For the first time in her life, the proud Princess Sarai felt unsure of her strength, unsure of her composure, because standing beside her, bleeding but unbowed, was a human soldier who had no reason to protect her, and yet did so without hesitation. She turned away quickly, forcing her thoughts back into order. "We must keep moving," she said. "If they capture us, both our worlds will burn." Aaron nodded, straightening despite the pain. "Then let's make sure they don't." Together, they stepped into the darkness of the next corridor, unaware that their escape would soon become the spark that changed not just the fate of the peace talks, but the destiny of both their species. The service tunnels beneath the palace were narrow and cold. Ancient energy lines glowed faintly under the floor, showing the way forward. The walls were made of smooth stone, carved centuries ago by the first Zarathian kings. Princess Sarai Velthar and Captain Aaron Miles moved through the passages in silence, their footsteps echoing softly. Every few moments, the princess looked back, expecting more attackers to appear. But only the sound of their breathing filled the air. Aaron kept his weapon ready, eyes sharp. His arm still bled from the earlier fight, but he didn't slow down. Sarai noticed the stiffness in his movements and finally spoke. "You should rest for a moment," she said. "That wound will worsen if left untreated." Aaron shook his head. "I'll manage. We can't stop yet. Whoever attacked the hall will search these tunnels soon." Sarai frowned. She admired his focus, but she was not used to being ignored. Back home, her word was law. Yet this human spoke to her as if they were equals. It was strange and oddly refreshing. Still, she could not let him destroy himself out of pride. Without asking, she stepped forward and placed her hand gently over his wounded arm. Her fingers glowed faintly with soft blue light as she activated a small healing crystal embedded in her palm. Aaron blinked. "What are you—" "Be still," she said simply. "Zarathian healing energy. It will not fix everything, but it will stop the bleeding." He watched as the burning pain faded into a dull warmth. The wound began to close slowly, leaving only a faint scar. "Thank you," he said quietly. Sarai nodded, avoiding his gaze. Do not mistake this for affection, human soldier. You are simply too useful to let die. Aaron smiled a little, though she didn't see it. Understood, Your Highness. They continued down the passage until they reached a sealed door made of reinforced crystal. It shimmered faintly under the tunnel lights. Aaron placed his hand on the control pad, but the system rejected his attempt. It needed a royal code. Sci-Fi stepped forward and pressed her palm against the scanner. A light beam passed over her skin, and the door opened with a low hiss. Beyond it was a small underground hangar filled with transport pods, but the moment they entered, they froze. A group of armored figures stood waiting, weapons drawn. The attackers had beaten them there. Get behind me, Aaron said again, raising his weapon. But before he could fire, one of the armored soldiers stepped forward. His voice was cold and sharp. Princess Sci-Fi Velthar, you are under arrest by order of the Zarathian High Command. Sci-Fi's eyes widened in shock. The High Command? That cannot be. Who are you? The soldier removed his helmet, revealing the face of General Rethar, one of her father's top military leaders. His expression was stern, his eyes filled with something between anger and pity. The Emperor has been misled by weak advisors, Rethar said. Peace with humans is a mistake. They are dangerous, untrustworthy. The High Command has chosen to end this foolish treaty before it begins. Sci-Fi's voice turned cold. You are committing treason. I am saving our empire, he replied. Step away from the human and you may yet live. Aaron glanced at her. You know this man? Yes, she said, her voice tight. He trained half the Zarathian fleet. He was supposed to protect the empire, not destroy it. Rethar raised his hand. Enough talking. Kill the human. Bring the princess to the flagship. The attackers moved forward. Aaron fired first, 2 precise shots that hit their armor joints, knocking them down. He grabbed Sci-Fi's arm and pulled her behind a transport pod for cover. Energy bolts flew across the hangar, scorching the floor. Sci-Fi crouched beside him, her heart racing. There are too many. Aaron looked around quickly, spotting an old power conduit above them. If we can overload that line, we can blind them long enough to escape. How? She asked. He tore a control cable from the wall. You'll need to trust me. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Together they crawled closer to the control unit. While energy bolts burned holes in the metal floor around them, Aaron connected the cable to his weapon, adjusted a small setting, and fired into the conduit. A blinding flash filled the hangar. The lights exploded, and the attackers shouted in confusion as their visors overloaded. Now, Aaron yelled. They sprinted to one of the transport pods. Sci-Fi jumped into the pilot seat, her fingers flying over the controls. The engines roared to life. Rethar shouted something behind them, but his voice was lost in the sound of the pod taking off. It shot through the exit tunnel like a beam of light. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The pod raced through the underground passage, then burst out into the open air above Valara Prime's crystal plains. Sci-Fi finally spoke, her voice trembling slightly. General Rethar has turned against the throne. If he controls the High Command, the peace talks are finished. Aaron leaned back in his seat, catching his breath. So this was never about humans attacking. It was your own people trying to stop peace, she nodded slowly. He will spread lies. He will say the humans betrayed us. My father will believe him. War will begin again. Aaron looked out the window, watching the sky streak by. Then we can't let him do that. We have to find proof. Proof? She repeated. Yes, evidence that Rethar led the attack. Once your people see the truth, they'll listen to you. Sci-Fi frowned. You speak as if it is easy. Zarathians trust power, not words. Aaron turned to her. Then we'll show them both. She met his gaze. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet determination. He wasn't speaking like a soldier obeying orders. He spoke like someone who refused to give up no matter the cost. Something in that look made her chest tighten again. She turned back to the controls. There is an ancient outpost in the western desert, she said. It connects to the royal archives. If we can reach it, I can access records proving Rethar's betrayal. Then that's where we're going, Aaron said. The pod sped across the desert. Dust and sunlight swirled outside the windows, painting the landscape in gold and red. After a while, the silence between them softened. Sci-Fi spoke first. Why did you become a soldier? Aaron thought for a moment. To protect people. My home colony was attacked when I was young. I couldn't stop it then. I decided I never wanted to feel that helpless again. Sci-Fi nodded slowly. In that we are not so different. He smiled slightly. You joined the military? No, she said softly. But I studied diplomacy so that others would not have to fight. I thought peace could be built through reason. Yet even now I see how fragile it is. Aaron looked at her with respect. It's not fragile because it's weak. It's fragile because it's worth something. For a moment neither of them spoke. The hum of the engines was the only sound. Then the pod shuddered. Warning lights flashed on the screen. They're following us, Sarai said sharply. Several dark ships appeared on the scanner. Rethar's pursuit squad. Aaron grabbed the co-pilot controls. Can we outrun them? Not for long, she replied. But there's a canyon ahead. If we fly low, their sensors may lose us. He nodded. Then hold on. Together they guided the pod down into the canyon. Energy blasts lit up the walls around them as enemy ships closed in. Sarai's hands moved quickly over the controls, dodging rocks and plasma fire. Aaron fired back with the pod's small turret, hitting one pursuer and sending it spinning into the canyon wall. Finally, after a tense chase, the scanners went clear. The attackers were gone. Sarai exhaled deeply, her shoulders relaxing. We made it, Aaron grinned. Nice flying, Princess. She raised an eyebrow. You are lucky I find your tone amusing, Captain. He laughed quietly, then grew serious again. They'll be back. We should rest and repair the pod while we can. There is a shelter nearby, she said, checking the navigation screen. We can stop there before continuing to the archives. As the pod descended toward the canyon floor, Sarai looked at the human beside her. He was tired, wounded, and far from home, yet he had risked everything to save her. She felt a strange warmth inside her chest. It wasn't fear or confusion this time. It was something new. Still, she kept her face calm and her voice steady. Do not misunderstand this alliance, Captain Miles. Once peace is restored, we return to our separate worlds. Aaron smiled faintly. Of course, Your Highness. Just until peace is restored. But deep down, both of them knew. Something had already changed. The desert stretched endlessly around them. The twin suns had already set, and the wide plain of Valara Prime glowed softly under the light of distant stars. The air was cool and still, broken only by the low hum of the damaged transport pod as it descended between high canyon walls. Princess Sarai Velthar guided the pod carefully toward a narrow opening carved into the rock. Her scanner showed faint traces of ancient energy. This place was once a temple, she said quietly, built before our empire reached the stars. It should provide cover for the night. Captain Aaron Miles nodded, eyes scanning the shadows. His uniform was torn, his arm still aching despite her healing, but his focus never wavered. He was used to strange places and long nights. Still, something about this planet felt different. Older, heavier, as if the sand itself remembered wars from ages past. The pod landed gently inside the hollow of the canyon. The engines powered down, leaving behind a deep silence. Only the faint wind whispered between the stones. Sarai stepped out first, her silver robes fluttering slightly in the cool air. The starlight reflected off the metal crest on her chest. She looked around at the crumbling ruins, pillars carved with ancient Zarathian symbols and walls covered in faded blue markings. Aaron followed her, keeping his weapon close but pointed downward. He wasn't sure what to say. The princess seemed calm, but he could sense the tension beneath her stillness. This place looks sacred, he said finally. It is, Sarai replied. Her voice softened. The Temple of Vera. My ancestors came here to ask guidance from the stars before great battles. Perhaps it is fitting we end up here before another one. Aaron gave a small smile. Then maybe the stars will help us too. She glanced at him briefly but said nothing. Instead, she walked deeper into the temple. The main hall was large and open, its floor covered in fine silver dust. At the center stood a round basin filled with faintly glowing crystals. Aaron found an old metal bench and began setting up a small camp. He unpacked a compact heater from his belt kit and started it with practiced hands. We'll need warmth, he said. The desert gets cold at night. Sarai watched him quietly, her arms crossed. Humans always prepare for everything, don't they? He chuckled. We try. Usually it's what keeps us alive. After a moment, she walked closer and knelt near the glowing basin. Tell me something, Captain, she said softly. Why are you here? Why send a soldier to a peace conference? Aaron leaned back, thinking. I wasn't supposed to come. I was part of the escort team for our ambassador. But when he fell ill before departure, the command asked me to represent the security unit. I guess they wanted someone who had seen the war up close. She tilted her head slightly. And you have? He nodded. Too many times. His eyes grew distant. I've seen cities burn. People on both sides doing terrible things because they were afraid of each other. I wanted this treaty to work, so no one else had to see that again. Sci-Fi listened in silence. The faint blue light from the crystals played across his face, showing the quiet sadness in his expression. She had always believed humans were creatures of emotion, ruled by impulse, but this man spoke with calm conviction, not anger. You fight for peace, she said finally.
Strange.
Most warriors fight for victory. Aaron looked at her. And you? What do you fight for, princess? She hesitated. For my people's pride, for the Empire's future, for my father's dream. Do you believe in that dream? He asked gently. Sci-Fi looked down at her reflection in the basin. I don't know anymore, she admitted. My father believes peace is possible. But many in the High Command see humans as a threat. They think you will one day destroy us. Aaron smiled faintly. I think we're all a little afraid of each other. But fear isn't destiny. She looked up, meeting his gaze. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt heavy yet calm, like the stillness before dawn. Then Aaron broke the silence. You should rest. I'll take first watch. You are injured, she said. You should rest first, he shook his head. I'm used to staying awake. Sci-Fi sighed softly. Humans and their pride. She moved toward one of the pillars and sat down gracefully, her silver eyes watching the stars through a broken section of the ceiling. Aaron sat across the room, cleaning his weapon. He looked at the princess from time to time, wondering how someone so composed could carry so much weight on her shoulders. She looked untouchable, almost like part of the temple itself, yet he had seen her bleed, fight, and risk her life. After a while, the silence grew comfortable. The heater hummed softly and the desert wind sang outside. Finally, Sci-Fi spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you ever fear death, Captain? He paused, thinking. Not really. I fear failing the people who depend on me more than dying. She looked at him curiously. That is admirable, he smiled. And you? What do you fear, Princess? For a moment she didn't answer. Then quietly she said, losing control. He frowned slightly. Control? Yes, my people respect strength. A leader who shows doubt loses trust. I have spent my whole life hiding my emotions. Even now, sitting here with you, I feel uncertain, and I do not like it. Aaron's voice was gentle. Maybe it's not weakness to feel. Maybe it's what keeps us human. Sci-Fi gave a small, almost amused smile. But I'm not human. Maybe not, he said softly. But you care, don't you? You want peace. You risked your life for it. That's something humans would do. She looked away quickly, pretending to study the carvings on the wall. You speak too freely, Captain. Occupational habit, he replied with a grin. The faintest hint of a smile touched her lips before she hid it again. Hours passed. The night grew colder and the heater's glow became the only light. Aaron eventually leaned back, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Sci-Fi noticed and quietly placed her cloak over him before returning to her seat. For the first time in many days, she allowed herself to breathe freely. She looked up at the stars visible through the broken ceiling. They reminded her of her homeworld far beyond the nebula. Her people believed that every star was the soul of a warrior who had served the Empire with honor. Tonight she wondered if those same stars watched over this strange human too. As dawn approached, Aaron stirred awake. He saw the cloak over his shoulders and smiled faintly. I thought you said we shouldn't show affection, he said teasingly. Sci-Fi pretended not to hear. The suns will rise soon. We should leave before Rathar's scouts find us. He chuckled quietly. Yes, Your Highness. They packed quickly, returning to the pod. As Sci-Fi powered it up, Aaron noticed her expression had softened. The tension that once controlled her features had faded slightly. Before they took off, he said, Thank you for last night. She looked at him for a long moment. It was necessary, she said, though her voice was less certain than usual. The pod lifted into the morning light, leaving the temple behind. The golden rays of dawn spread across the desert, bathing the ruins in warmth. As they flew toward the western mountains, Sci-Fi glanced at Aaron. If we reach the royal archives, we can send a signal to the council. But once we do, the High Command will know we're alive. They will come for us. Then we'll be ready, he said. She studied him quietly, then nodded. You truly are different from the stories I've heard about humans. Good different or bad different? He asked. She hesitated, then said softly, Still deciding. Aaron smiled. Fair enough. They flew on, side by side, through the clear morning sky. Neither of them said it aloud, but both knew that something had changed between them. The mission had become more than survival or duty. It had become a bond, fragile, uncertain, but real. And as the desert stretched out behind them, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the galaxy itself had begun to hope again. The transport pod skimmed over the jagged cliffs, moving fast toward the city. Below them, the capital of the Zarathian Empire spread out like a shimmering jewel. Glass towers reflected the morning sun, and the streets were already alive with citizens unaware of the political storm brewing in the shadows. Princess Sarai Velthar sat in the co-pilot seat, her fingers resting lightly on the controls. Her expression was calm, but her mind raced. The betrayal by General Rethar had shaken the Empire to its core. The High Command could no longer be trusted, and if she could not prove his treachery, war would begin once more. Captain Aaron Miles sat across from her, quietly checking the pod's weapon systems. His arm still throbbed, but he made no complaint. His gray eyes scanned the city below, calculating risks, escape routes, and possible landing zones. Do you think the Council will believe us? Sarai asked quietly. Aaron shook his head. Not without proof, but you have it. And if we present it correctly, they have to listen. You have authority, and I have a witness who saw everything. That counts for something. Sarai gave a faint nod. His confidence was comforting, yet the weight of her responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. She had been trained to handle diplomacy, but never had she faced a traitor so close to home. The pod descended onto a secluded landing pad near the council hall, hidden behind layers of security. Sarai powered it down and they stepped out into the soft morning light. Guards immediately approached, but upon recognizing the princess they bowed deeply. Aaron stayed slightly behind her, scanning the surroundings. We don't have much time, he said. Rethar will know we're back. Sarai straightened, her calm composure returning. Then we must act quickly. They entered the council hall. The chamber was massive, filled with pillars of crystal that reflected sunlight in dazzling patterns. High above, the gallery held the portraits of past Zarathian rulers. Their eyes seemed to watch her as she walked past, reminding her of the weight of history she carried. The High Council sat in a semicircle at the far end. Elder advisors, generals, and diplomats turned toward her as she entered. Murmurs filled the hall, and for a moment, Sarai felt the tension of 1,000 years of tradition pressing down on her. General Rethar stepped forward from among the council members, his expression carefully controlled. Your Highness, he said, his voice steady, I am relieved you survived. But I must remind you, the treaty was a dangerous mistake. Humans cannot be trusted. Sarai's eyes narrowed. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. General Rethar, she said, her voice calm but firm, you are wrong. Your actions are not protecting the Empire. They endanger it. You attacked the peace conference and your orders would have led to more death. Gasps spread through the chamber. Several council members whispered urgently to one another. Rethar's expression darkened. Princess, you cannot accuse me without proof. This is treasonous. Aaron stepped forward. I witnessed everything, he said clearly. The attack on the conference was planned and executed by Rethar and his loyalists. I protected the princess. They intended to blame humans to start a war. The chamber fell into stunned silence. A human soldier, standing boldly before the council, speaking truth about the actions of a powerful Zarathian general. It was unheard of. Sarai stepped closer to the center of the hall, holding a small data crystal in her hand. The archives of Valara Prime contain recordings of the attack and communications from Rethar himself. He gave orders to fire on both humans and our own people to prevent peace, the council murmured, and several advisors leaned forward, eyes wide. Rethar's calm demeanor faltered. This cannot be, he said. You are manipulating the council, princess. You would side with humans over your own empire? Sarai's voice sharpened. I side with truth, General. I side with life. And I will not allow you to endanger everything we have worked for because of your fear and pride. Aaron placed a hand on the data crystal. The recordings are real. You can check them now. One of the elder council members, Advisor Thalen, stepped forward, taking the crystal. He connected it to the central display. Holographic images filled the room, communications, orders, and visual evidence of the attack. Rethar's face grew pale. The chamber fell silent as the council watched the evidence. This proves nothing, he finally shouted. I acted for the good of the Empire. Sarai's voice did not waver. No, General. You acted to protect your own power, and now the council knows the truth. Several council members stood, murmuring their agreement. She is right, one said. This is clear evidence of treason. Rethar's expression hardened, but he realized the tide had turned. You will regret this, Princess, he hissed. Sarai ignored him. Instead, she turned to Aaron and gave a small nod. The council has the proof. They will act, Aaron smiled faintly. Looks like we did it. The council quickly voted to remove Rethar and his loyalists from command. Security forces loyal to the Emperor were dispatched to arrest them. Within hours, the immediate threat of civil war had passed and the peace treaty could continue. Sarai felt a deep sense of relief. She had faced betrayal, risked her life, and stood before her people to uphold the truth. And it had worked. After the council session, she stepped onto the balcony of the hall. The city stretched below her, bathed in golden sunlight. Citizens moved about their day, unaware of the events that had almost destroyed their world. Aaron joined her, leaning slightly against the railing. You handled that well, he said quietly. Sarai looked at him, her expression softening. I did not do it alone. Your courage saved me, and your words gave me strength. He shrugged lightly. I just did what anyone would do. She smiled faintly. Not everyone would. Not every human would stand beside me, risking life and reputation in front of the council. Aaron met her gaze. Maybe humans surprise you sometimes. For a long moment, they stood in silence, looking over the city. Sarai felt a warmth inside her chest she did not fully understand. It was not fear, not duty. It was something new, something powerful. I suppose, she said softly, this is the beginning of something greater. For my empire, and perhaps for humanity as well, Aaron nodded. It is, and we'll face it together. She raised an eyebrow. Do not mistake this alliance, Captain. It is for peace, nothing more. He smiled faintly. Of course, Your Highness. For peace. Even so, the bond between them had quietly grown stronger. Mutual respect, shared danger, and the understanding of each other's courage created a connection neither could deny. As the suns of Valara Prime rose higher, signaling a new day, Sarai felt hope. The Empire had survived betrayal, the humans had shown their bravery, and she had learned that sometimes strength comes from trust and unity, not just power. The galaxy was vast, and challenges still lay ahead, but for the first time, she believed that humans and Zarathians could truly stand together. And as she looked at Aaron, standing firmly beside her, she allowed herself a small, private smile. The future would not be easy, but together they could face it, undaunted, unbroken, and unafraid. The twin suns of Valara Prime cast long golden rays over the capital city. The air was alive with the hum of hovercrafts and the chatter of citizens going about their daily lives. After the confrontation with General Rethar and the confirmation of his treachery, the Empire had begun to breathe again. Peace, fragile but real, had returned to the galaxy. For now. Princess Sarai Velthar stood on the balcony of the council hall, her eyes scanning the streets below. Citizens were unaware of the events that had unfolded over the past day. The plots, the betrayals, the battles fought in secret to save their lives and their future. Yet she could feel the relief in the air, a collective exhale of hope. Beside her, Captain Aaron Miles adjusted the strap of his gear. He had been present during the council session, standing boldly beside the princess, and the respect he had earned from the Zarathian Council was clear in their deferential nods. Still, he kept his demeanor calm and professional, as if he had only been doing what any soldier would. Sarai turned to him, her expression softer than it had ever been. The council accepted the evidence, she said quietly. Rethar and his loyalists have been removed. The treaty can continue. Aaron nodded. It's not over, though. Others may try to take his place, but at least the immediate threat is gone. She looked out at the city once more, her mind racing through the possibilities. It is enough for now. And it is proof that humans are capable of great courage and honor. He glanced at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. You really mean that, don't you? Sarai hesitated, then nodded. Yes, I have seen it with my own eyes. Not all humans are reckless or weak. You are different, Aaron chuckled lightly. I'll take that as a compliment, Your Highness. She raised an eyebrow. Do not mistake me. I am merely speaking the truth. The city was quiet now, the morning bustle continuing below them. Sarai turned to Aaron fully, her violet eyes reflecting the sunlight. Captain Miles, your actions have changed the course of our history. You stood with me when others would not, and for that I am grateful. Aaron's gaze softened. It was my duty, Princess. And besides, he said with a faint grin, I think we make a good team. She blinked at him, surprised by the simple honesty of his words. She had spent her life navigating complex protocols, reading endless reports, and commanding armies, but never had anyone spoken so plainly to her about loyalty and trust. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the warmth of companionship. The sound of approaching footsteps drew their attention. Advisors and council members began to gather near the balcony, ready to escort the princess to the next meeting regarding the treaty. Sarai straightened, her composure returning as she prepared to face the world once more. Aaron stepped aside, bowing slightly. Shall I accompany you further? He asked. No, she replied, her tone firm but gentle. Your duty lies with your people. My world will manage its own affairs from here. He nodded, hiding the faint disappointment in his expression. As you wish, Princess. Before they parted ways, she spoke softly, almost as if to herself. Thank you. For everything. Aaron's eyes met hers, steady and sincere. If you ever need me again, Princess, you'll only have to call. She gave a small nod, her face calm, though her heart beat faster than she wished. I will remember that, she said quietly. As Aaron left toward the transport pad, Sarai turned back to the city. From up here, she could see the great towers, the glittering streets, and the citizens moving below. She thought of the humans she had encountered, the soldiers, the diplomats, and the one human who had shown her courage in the face of chaos. The galaxy was vast, and dangers remained. Rogue factions, political intrigues, and distant wars were far from over. Yet Sarai felt a newfound confidence. She had faced betrayal, witnessed bravery beyond her expectations, and found that trust could be stronger than fear. As the morning unfolded, the council session began. Sarai presented plans for rebuilding the damaged districts, strengthening communications between human colonies and the Zarathian Empire, and reinforcing the treaty with transparent agreements. Her advisors listened carefully, noting her clear vision and calm authority. In the council chamber, whispers about the human soldier circulated quietly. Many Zarathians were impressed, perhaps even inspired by his courage and honesty. Some council members quietly discussed the possibility of creating formal programs for cooperation between humans and Zarathians, a small but significant step toward lasting peace. Hours later, the princess returned to the balcony. The city stretched below her once more, now bathed in the warmth of late morning. She closed her eyes, letting the sunlight wash over her. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a future where humans and Zarathians could work side by side, learning from each other rather than fearing one another. A soft sound drew her attention. She opened her eyes to see a small group of children looking up at the balcony, waving shyly. Sarai smiled faintly, raising a hand in greeting. The children waved back enthusiastically. She thought of Aaron, of the bravery and honor he had shown, and of the possibilities that lay ahead. Perhaps humans could become allies, not just in necessity but in friendship. Perhaps there could be a future where peace was more than a fragile promise. As the day continued, the princess allowed herself one small indulgence. She let the smile linger, genuine and warm. Her people would follow her guidance, the council would support the treaty, and she knew that the galaxy had seen proof that courage and loyalty could exist across worlds. Hours later, in a quiet moment away from the council, Sarai stood alone on the balcony. The sun had climbed higher, casting long shadows across the city. She thought of Aaron and the bond that had grown between them. Not romance, not friendship alone, but something deeper, built from trust, respect, and shared trials. The galaxy was uncertain, and challenges would continue to arise. But for the first time, Princess Sarai Velthar felt that humanity, in all its unpredictability, could be a force for hope rather than fear. Her thoughts turned to the stars above. She had spent her life studying them, learning their patterns and histories, but tonight she realized that the stars could also guide hearts, not just destinies. Somewhere out there, a human soldier was looking up at the same sky, and for a moment, she allowed herself to believe that the same hope shone in his eyes. A soft hum from the palace alerted her that the council session had ended. Advisors began moving toward her to discuss the next steps, but Sarai lingered, taking one last look at the city below. The future was uncertain, but she was ready. She turned to the doorway as Aaron returned to escort her back, though their duties would soon separate them. He paused briefly, giving her a respectful nod. "The galaxy owes you your courage, Princess, and I am glad I could stand beside you." Sarai met his gaze. "And I am grateful you did." They parted ways once more, knowing that the bond between them would remain, even across the distances of space. The treaty would continue, the Empire would rebuild, and the humans would remember the courage of one Zarathian princess. And as the sun shone over Valara Prime, the princess allowed herself to hope. Not just for peace between humans and Zarathians, but for the possibility that courage, honor, and trust could endure, shaping the galaxy in ways that fear never could. Princess Sarai Velthar had fought to keep her composure, to stand against betrayal, and to lead her people with wisdom. And in the process, she had discovered something even more powerful, that across the stars, humans and Zarathians could fight side by side, each learning from the other, and together, face whatever the universe had in store. The galaxy was vast, and its challenges were many, but for the first time in a long time, Princess Sarai felt that the light of hope could shine brighter than any shadow of fear. She looked up at the skies above, knowing that whatever came next, humanity's courage and her own resolve would be the guide. And in the quiet of the morning, the twin suns shining over Valara Prime, she smiled. The adventure was far from over, but this was only the beginning of something greater.